The Depth to Delve Deep by Rote Writer. Chapter 15. Stormy Night. Rote starts to slur after one pint of tenants and one shot of grouse. He can feel his weary mind, body and soul slip a bit. Barely any sleep since his forced separation from acetaminophen with codeine, accompanied by the stress of living with an unwelcome someone, the fool feels the full effect of alcohol. A patron of the inn living in Drimmen notices the nitwit nod a bit. He asks him stirringly, trying to get the bottle-nosed boozer a bit more cognizant of his state. "How are you getting back to the inn?" "The last bus." "Oh, but the last bus is about 2 hours away, and it seems Rote is well on his way past the point of passing out, blacking out." He goes into the third and last pub, managing to keep his head up long enough to walk out of one establishment into the next. He sits at a table patiently for well over half-hour before realizing he has to go to the bar to be served. Miffed by this, he manages to make his way to the bar. He becomes cognizant of a co-worker sitting there, the barkeep, at the inn they both work at. Roguishly, Rote lets him know his angst, albeit stifled by a drunken demeanor, something about not being served promptly upon his arrival. As a drunk, he shows his disdain for being ignored and sees the bar staff just standing there, not busy, and certainly with plenty of time to notice him, not to mention his co-worker, who watches the whole time. The grievances grow. Rote has to leave. He's lashing out at the wrong people who are just doing their job in the customary way all of Britain does. Let the customer or patron come to the pub's bar, they want something, and serve them there. He's angry, or at least in anguish, over his acetaminophen with codeine withdrawals, not to mention his dislike for his roommate, so these good people need not share in his discomfort. Rote's rambling in rumination and mumbling in numb to the point of dumb. The numbskull catches the last bus back to the inn. He boards the bus and notices halfway down the aisle 2 wild women drinking from an open bottle of wine. They're broadsided by their backpacks, a dog, and a huge wooden frame the size of a sail. He sits down beside them across the aisle. The three of them immediately get into conversation. They're all in approximately the same state, save for Rote. He has a whole lot of other weights wobbling his legs, though their friendliness sure helps him wake up a bit. When they tell him their plans for the evening, Rote realizes the 2 tipple travelers are definitely out of their element, endeavoring into an environment that even at the best of times and states requires some forethought. They have no thought but to set up a tent in the pouring rain in the dark hours into a domain they have never set foot in, save for hearing about this Highland Trail, a trail that passes right along the side of the loch they're on. Aye, they're in good company, for Rote has made a life rife with strife while living on the edge, and this is no different. He encourages them to, at least before they start stumbling through a terrain blindly in a torrential downpour, to place their backpacks in his caravan and come inside the inn for a drink. Off the bus with their backpacks they go, with an enormous picture frame and dog in tow. In the deluge, they tumble towards the caravan where his roommate waits. Rote's always a friendly sort unless stirred, otherwise no matter what history held with someone. He introduces his 2 new friends. He can tell his roommate is thinking of other things. Seeing the 2 backpacks, the dog, along with the 6x12-foot picture frame outside, seen slipped underneath a vehicle to prevent it from getting warped by the rain and from Foot's finding it. His roommate refrains from any reciprocal response forged from the friendly format displayed by the threesome. He leaves them there and heads to the inn while Rote and company settle their belongings. They follow suit soon after to the inn's pub, leaving all behind, including the dog agog and the caravan. In the bar, after paying for the first round of drinks, Rote and his 2 misguided maidens sit beside the hearth with warmth. It's a beautiful stone-mantled fireside. Maybe 5 minutes later, the telephone rings behind the bar. Rote is asked by the manager to answer it. It's one of the owners. The other is away on a ski trip with one, if not some of his sons. The conversation immediately takes a tone and turn for the worse. His roommate has obviously gone straight to one of the owners with his findings. With a polite but curt tone, the innkeeper relays in so many words the rules and regulations for employees. Specifically, they don't allow dogs or guests to stay in the caravan. The dog being the catalyst, the poor creature's been crying to them. The three, amorously affected by alcohol, still drinking in the inn, have no idea. The three haven't even reached the point where Rote wants them to be, settled in the caravan for the night, and here's the mother of the inn, under the impetus of his roommate, already assuming the presupposed plan. Perturbed by it all, the drunken knight, armored with wet gear, gives his boss an ultimatum with the words, "Let my two guests stay in the caravan. It's dark, it's late, and it's pouring rain outside, and if you don't, I'll quit." 5 minutes later, the mother of the inn comes with a tally of all his hours and the pounds to pay him. She reminds him that, no, they can't stay in the caravan this night or any other night. They can pay for a room in their inn. Those are the rules, and the arrangement with the living employees the inn instills on being hired. He suspects his new friends are without funds, for they might have spoken up and said something along the lines of getting a room. With that, the mother of the inn leaves them sitting there while Rote reels from the sudden stab of reality. He unleashes a few mean words to his roommate and the manager minding the bar that night. He's adamant to let the two remain in the caravan. He knows they have no hope in hell in those extreme weather conditions, let alone the hour and state they're in. The two hellcats, however, are determined to do what they've set out to do. They have no choice since they've been indirectly told to get gear and dog and themselves out of the caravan. They head back to the caravan through the pouring rain, already drenched. The deluge leaves them dripping. The two retrieve their backpacks, dog, and huge wooden frame that the fool finds himself carrying. They set out of the caravan and search for a suitable spot for the two to set up some semblance of a campsite. Up towards the craggy fort, Rote leads them through more than miserable conditions. They're unable to see save for the feel of the rainfall ricochet from the one follow. The frame is an obstacle in itself. Even carrying it in the best of conditions can easily cause calamity. Climb they do, frame and dog in tow, towards the top of the hill ridge where Rote has spent so much time. Rote relates to the two following how wonderful the view is from the vantage point, but quietly thinks through the gradual clearing in his mind. It might not make such a good place to pitch a tent in the tumultuous torrent. They make it up to the top. Rote relinquishes his hold on the frame that, along with the wind and the rain, run him ragged, with its awkward angles angling through the forest, often with sail-like powers up in those open spaces. Once on top, they all conclude quickly there's no way they'll be able to set up a tent with the wind wailing wet. So back down they go, with the frame, backpacks, and dog in tow, wildly wagging wet. Rote rather quickly, with help from both the weather, the circumstances, along with the absolute insanity of carrying a wall-sized frame up and down through a forest in the most miserable and often dangerous conditions, sobers up. The two backpackers are still convinced they have to set up a bivouac somewhere, and they decide why not where they're standing, plump dab in the middle of the found forest, down a ways from the craggy fort. The three are soaking wet as they lay down their backpacks. They haul out their tent along with a lantern, for it's pitch black. They take turns trying to light the lantern. It's an exercise in futility. With no chance of that happening, the three stand soaked. Finally, Rote convinces them it's okay to sleep in the caravan, where he's already fired and will be leaving the following day. Again, with the frame they go, with dog and tow, to the caravan burdened by backpacks and by the wet weather. Inside the caravan, they quickly turn on the now working propane heater in the main room and an electric one in his tiny room. They remove the outer layer of their wet clothing. They're not surprised to find the next one wetter. All the while, the dog goes about whipping all with his wild, wet shakes. Meanwhile, Rote's roommate may have been in his own room by then or still at the bar. None of them seem to care after spending several harrowing hours battling extreme conditions and wills. Weary and worn amidst a wet array of garments, they come into Rote's room. The two lie on the floor covered with couch seats and pillows. Rote rests on his body-sized bed, tossing and turning for the remainder of the night. He feverishly feels the acetaminophen with codeine withdrawals working through him, especially his forearms. He never falls asleep and is unsure if it's the same for the two moored on the floor. They all seem to rise at the same time. The willed one, the one who's determined to finish what she set out to do, sits on the side of Rote's bed. Soon they are hugging each other. She leans over and together they hold on to one another as if they've known each other for a while. While they lie like spoons, a Welsh proverb passes through the theme scene. A spoon does not know the taste of soup, nor a learned fool the taste of wisdom. She goes about rubbing his forearms, one over the other under him. She makes an offhand comment about the texture and tenuous nature of his forearms, metaphorically likening them to prosthetics. While holding off any Gandhi, she responds to her likening of his discolored forearms by the many hours submerged in dishwater. He doesn't want to alert her to the brunt of his pain, the withdrawals. They help to highlight his hurting forearms. His veins bulge for breath. It's soon morning as they get up and go about locating their still wet garments, hanging everywhere and anywhere around the caravan. One of the crazies cooks up some porridge broth. It sure makes for a good start to the day when mixed with raisins and brown sugar. Add coffee, they're good to go. They go about outing what to do. One is absolutely determined to fulfill her will. Rote's already bewitched by this babe from Wales, a real willful woman. The poet warrior goes outside into a not so bad start to the day to help her cause, completely forgetting the situation he's in with his work worries. Worries aside, he pulls out the ponderous picture frame from underneath a parked vehicle. It should have remained there the night before. Together they start stretching a sheet of canvas the size of a sail over the wooden frame. With a stapler, they stretch and staple until the taut canvas contains the entire frame. Once painted and framed, the picture will straddle the entire wall as a work of art. The artist is shoeless as she schemes and deems what's to be done. A friend to the inn and lock it overlooks comes by to check on his summertime caravan. It's parked in the same lot where Rote's caravan rests along with a few others. He looks at her like she is and smiles when he glances at Rote, asking, "What are you doing?" And an amused explanation is given. With frame in tow, towed again by a willing though reluctant Rote, along with her dog and the other backpacker, they go. They leave the caravan, pursuing the painter's plan, to paint, for she's a painter. They leave the backpacks and an assortment of wet vestments still decorating the interior of the caravan, strategically placed to steam dry as they head back to the craggy fort. Rote's seen again with the frame, though this time canvassed. It makes it even more of a task to hold, let alone walk and guide through a forest trail. They bumble back up to the craggy fort. All the while, Miss Wales is working her companions into obeisance with a will to paint her picture. Up on top, they accommodate the painter in every way they can, but after an hour or so of that, Rote realizes there's no taming this shrew. He senses she will lead him over a cliff just to see if he can fly. Finally, after a bit of wrangling, he leaves them on the craggy fort with instructions from the Welsh princess painter to get linseed oil. It's in her backpack. She needs some to wash away unwanted paint from the hands and painting proper. The other wants him to retrieve the camera hid underneath Rote's bed. Down the craggy fort goes Rote much more adeptly without the canvas frame. Upon coming to the caravan, he stopped and shocked. Someone at the inn has managed to change the locks. Unable to enter, he stands there with his hands in the air. Fortunately, the fellow who watched them canvass the painter's frame earlier comes over from his caravan, forwarding a message that all their belongings, including yours, are at the inn in one of the back kitchen rooms. Rote knows they couldn't have found the camera, for he hid it himself. He mentions to the fellow, "I still have to get in the caravan. The camera belonged to one of them is hidden inside." They drive over the short walking distance to the inn to get the new key. The mother of the inn warns Rote, "The tour you're with will bleed you dry if you stay with them." Still feeling a bit guilty for having been a bit brash the night before with a drunken debacle, Rote apologizes to her, goes to the inn and apologizes to the manager, who was only trying to help the night before. While walking through the kitchen, he gets looks of concern from the chef and cook, but only reciprocated disdain for it from his roommate. Out in the back, he checks on the situation with their backpacks and his bags. He packs his own bags prior to finding the campsite before it rained the night before. All is okay, and with no attempt to look for the linseed oil for the Welsh wanton, he leaves the bags, including his own. He gets the lift back to the caravan where he works his way in. After retrieving the camera, he's locked out again. Before he goes up to the craggy fort, the father of the inn, who just returned from a ski trip earlier in the day, comes over. He catches up with Rote to hear his side of the story. They really like Rote and wonder if he'll be okay with his decision. After shaking hands, he lets it be known there are no hard feelings. He's grateful for the chance to have spent some time in this part of Scotland. Back to the craggy fort he goes for the last time with camera in hand and no linseed oil, much to the disbelief of the painter. After all, that's what she requested. Astonished Rote is with this woman, who seems so immersed in her own purpose to paint that all else is trivial to her needs and wants. Well, Welshwoman, thinks Rote, and find no other words to sort his discord with her, decides to leave. He's leaving the inn and the lock, and he's about to leave her dog, and her partially painted canvas frame under the overcast skies alone. There, atop Rote's favorite hilltop, the craggy fort, to fend for herself. Her friend comes along to see where the backpacks are, and then will supposedly return with linseed oil for the artist. Rote, with one last look from the vantage view, with mountains rising along the length of the lake, says adieu. He leaves the painter with her piercing parting words still stinging and ringing in his ears. More linseed oil! I need more linseed oil! Back down by the inn, he gathers his two tightly packed blue carry bags and collects his mail. It comes from the bank in Drimmen he recently opens up an account with. He receives earlier a library card, though that won't do him much good now. He then walks through the kitchen and out through the front door to the bus stop, accompanied by the other backpacker. Rote waits for the bus at the stance across from the inn. The sane backpacker, after sipping some of her coffee and sharing some shared dismay on the way the woman from Wales assumes all to accommodate her whims and wishes, gives her cell or moreover her mobile number to Rote. She lets him know he can crash at her pad tonight in Glasgow. While waiting for the bus to arrive, Rote and her chat, both bemused and amused by the bedeviled Welshwoman and with all that has happened since meeting each other. The bus arrives as they give each other a hug. Rote boards the bus, hoping to reconnect with both of them that night.